Bills Mafia, what's going on? Happy Tuesday, as always, on First and Five on your Tuesday afternoons. I'm joined by my guy, 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞. And last time we spoke, John, it was right after the end of the trade deadline where the Bills and Brandon Beane were frustrated about not getting the deal done within our division. The Bills went and lost to the Dolphins, got embarrassed by the Dolphins. So I wanted to come on here today and talk about who's to blame. I think there's a lot of conversations going around social media. If it's this person, that person, all that stuff. And I just wanted to put that all together. But man, how are you feeling after Sunday's game, having about 24 hours, 48 hours to think on it and kind of stew on it? Like, where's your head at right now, man?
Like shit. That's pretty much how I'm feeling.
Honesty, I love it.
Yeah. It's not great, dude. They're a 2-win Dolphins team. Wildly concerning. And it's not like you lost close. You got your asses kicked 30-13.
Right.
To a 2-win Dolphin team. I'm not feeling good. I don't feel good. I think there's a lot to be concerned about with this team. And I think having the conversations about who's to blame is completely fair and valid, and kind of start talking big picture a little bit, maybe outlook for the rest of the season / playoffs. Beyond, in terms of what that means for some of these names, some of these faces that we're familiar with. I don't know. There's a lot to unpack, and it's just an accumulation of things over time, right? It's amazing. You go from beating the Chiefs and feeling so good to then laying just an absolute dud against Miami. And it's things like that make it hard to analyze a team. It makes it tough to kind of decipher who this team really is, what the outlook is for them this season, when you have those type of polar opposites, right? You lose to the Falcons, and that really, really sucked. And then you beat the bricks off the Panthers, and then you beat the Chiefs. Great. And then you lose to the Dolphins. It's like, who is this team? I don't understand what the 2025 Buffalo Bills are. They're 6-3 in the hunt for the playoffs still. Patriots are pulling away for the division lead. That's about it. I don't know. They have a lot of flaws, and flaws that have been there all season long that just continue to keep showing up time and time again with a little adjustments from coaching as well. So lots to talk about in terms of who to put this blame on. But yeah, it's a confusing loss that has many people, myself included, doubting what this team is capable of this year.
Yeah, it's like the Jekyll and Hyde effect, because you and me have been doing this all season, and we talked earlier in the season about, what's the identity of this team? Is it the team that beat the Chiefs? Is it the team that Josh Allen carried, the team on his back against the Ravens? Or is it the team that looked inept on offense, against the Falcons, against the Dolphins, against the Patriots? So we're going to get into it, and there's not going to be any really particular order of how I wanted to do the show. It's just, I think the biggest talking points, there's 4 people, and they're on the thumbnail that I made for the video. It's Beane, McDermott, Brady, and Josh. And I feel like we can start in any order, and the show's going to kind of carry us, whichever way we kind of want. But I think we need to start with Brandon Beane first.
Yep.
Because, yes, it's been beat to death, I feel like, the past week or so, especially after the trade deadline, about the wide receiver position. And obviously the clips are recirculating from when he went nuclear on WGR. A lot of people are taking, I don't even know how to phrase it, because Brandon Beane came to a press conference on Tuesday after saying, I called some teams within the division and wasn't able to get a deal done. Then coincidentally on Sunday, a report comes out that the Dolphins would have gave you Jalen Waddle if you would have just made it a 26 first-round pick instead of a 27.
By the way, what are the odds that report was leaked by?
Oh, it was absolutely planned. 100% the Dolphins the Dolphins had to have leaked that. 100%.
You don't think it came from Buffalo? You don't think it was them being like, look, guys, we're trying. I tried to get something done. Because that's the way that I read it.
But I feel like the reports were already out there that Beane I mean, he admittedly said himself he called teams within the division and they just said no. Now, the Quinnen Williams one, I wasn't as turned off by that because there was nothing that's come out that said what he was willing to offer for Quinnen Williams. But the Jalen Waddle one,
yeah,
is the one that is sticking with everybody because you watch this game, you watch a lot of games this season and last season, and you feel like we need an explosive number one wide receiver who's young that we can kind of, mold a contract the way we want for the future if we want him to be here long term until he's into his 30s. And I feel like I'm over the fact that Beane gets frustrated with the media people asking questions. Like we've been asking these questions, right? Not just me, but the guys that are in the press conference room. And he sits up here and there's like a weird arrogance about him about this isn't fantasy football. Well, it's not, but you know what? The Eagles made a move. They have no money. I mean, there was teams that were willing to make moves, and it's just the Colts. The Colts made a move. Now, if you agree with the move and what the compensation was or not, that's fine. But the Colts made a move. They feel like they're in a lightning in a bottle scenario where if they get Sauce, maybe that helps them on defense. They have a really good offense. I think they lead the league in points scored. They've scored over 300 points already, and they've like the owner and the general manager are like, look, we are like let's win right now. We don't know if this is going to happen again. And Brandon Beane, I feel like, is just kind of stuck in this whole, we have Josh Allen. He is the window. As long as he's here, it doesn't really matter. We can just get by on doing this year, this next year, the year after, the year after, the year after. I mean, what's your overall thoughts on Beane and how the roster's been constructed? You don't have to go in depth in the draft in the last, 8 years or so, but like, I'm just kind of over the smugness of Brandon Beane. Like,
yeah,
how do you?
It's a turnoff for sure, man. Like, it's the media's job to ask questions. They're totally fair and valid questions. It's not like the media's berating him or, just asking obscene questions out of the blue that are like really insulting and stuff like that. They're completely valid and fair questions. You got rid of Stephon Diggs, and since then you haven't addressed the wide receiver position with anything serious. Keon Coleman was an attempt, didn't work.
Can I cut you off for a second?
Yeah.
And we agreed before we went live, guys. Don't think that we're just interrupting each other because we have no manners. I feel like if I feel like if there's a hot button, I'm going to push it, and I feel like you're going to do the same. So we talk about Stephon Diggs, and we talk about the fact of, the Cincinnati playoff game where he threw his arms up and, in the snow, and Josh was sitting next to Brady on the bench. He looked all disheveled. And then we kind of, I don't want to say they ran Diggs out of town because, he was just this diva and he was this locker room cancer. I feel like he might have known what this offense was going to look like under Joe Brady. He was in practice every week. He spent, time in the system, and he kind of understood where it was leaning towards. It was leaning towards a heavy dose of James Cook, which we saw down the stretch after Brady took over in 23. It was a heavy dose of whoever's going to be open this week, we're going to throw him the ball. And if you have a number one receiver, that's going to hit your ego no matter who you are, right? So I look at what Diggs is doing this season with Drake May, and it's like, he looks like Stephon Diggs of a few years ago when he was making plays. I think he's in the top 5 in receptions and yards, and he's making plays. And we got on him about being an asshole. And I've said all along that this team is filled with choir boys. This team is filled with guys that are just going to be nice in the locker room. They're going to be great to each other, and they're not going to get in somebody's face when something's going wrong. And I feel like when you had Stephon Diggs, we didn't see all this stuff in practice. We didn't see all this stuff in the locker room. We just saw what the media presented to us, and we just saw what happened on game day, right? If I'm Stephon Diggs and I'm used to getting 15 targets a game, 14, 15 targets a game, and now I'm getting 6, and I have a quarterback who's been told to not look at me on certain plays, even though I'm doing my 111th and getting open.
But then hold on. But then hold on. All we have right now is an offensive system that is everybody eats, except we are going to blindly target a wide receiver,
right?
Keon Coleman. So what the hell? That doesn't pass the smell test, because how this offense is operating right now is we want to be able to run the ball. Dalton Kincaid has looked great this season. He's looked awesome. I was so upset that he went down with the hammy in that game because he looks like he has like the most rapport with Josh right now on this team. But how many times are we watching these 50-50 sideline tosses from Josh to Keon Coleman? I was taking notes on this game, and I'm pretty sure there were 5 of them. 4 of them were incomplete. Yeah. 1 of them went for a touchdown. And if you keep doing it, yeah, you're going to get one every once in a while. But talk about low probability passes. It just doesn't make any sense why we're continuing to force feed this. And we talked about this a few weeks ago. Coming out of the bye, we thought that, okay, we're past this now, right, Joe? Right? We're done with that. It wasn't working.
And then in Kansas City, we saw that they were past that. They saw that my guys that are the playmakers on offense are 𝐾𝐨𝐿, Dalton Kincaid, and James Cook. It was an equal spread amongst all of them. And
which
Josh,
is how it should be. Which is how this offense should run. Exactly. And honestly, the only thing from this last game that I was happy about on the offense was that James Cook had 5 targets. Great. Cool. Thank you for getting him some involvement in the passing game. We've been clamoring for that. But 𝐾𝐨𝐿 with 9 for 7 catches and 58 yards. Keon Coleman with 8 targets. He had a 35-yard touchdown.
Right.
And 46 total yards on 8 targets. So you take out the 135, and I'm not saying that you should take that out, but outside of the one deep, 50-50 chance ball down the sideline, he's got 2 catches for, I can't math, 11 yards on 7 other targets. Like, what are we doing?
And that's
force feeding the ball to Keon Coleman instead of force feeding the ball to a true number 1 wide receiver. Like, if you're going to have someone that you're going to force 8 to 10 targets to a game, it should be someone good. Like, I'm sorry, but it doesn't make any sense. Like, couldn't that have been Stephon Diggs' role? Like, and not only that, but the targets are low probability targets, like I just said. It's not like he's running a variety of routes.
That's the thing, and I want to push back a little bit on Keon Coleman because I was highly critical. I've posted many videos about how the Bills just aren't using Keon Coleman the right way, and I feel like there's a lot to Keon Coleman right now. There's a lot. It's a hot topic to blame him and scapegoat him for how this offense is performing. I feel like the Bills are not using Keon Coleman the way that they should be using Keon Coleman. If you watch those routes that you were talking about on Sunday, yes, there was some routes where he was jogging and looked completely disinterested. The ball was thrown to him. And it was uncatchable. And you could see he was on the sideline and he kicked the ball after the play. You could tell like it was like a little kid, like he was pouting. But there's also times when you watch and Keon Coleman is wide ass open and Josh is not looking at him. Yeah. And say what you want about, that's only a couple times a game, but you never know what that could turn into. Like, everybody's complaining that they're using him wrong or these routes just aren't working. Maybe put him in the slot, but then when they put him in the slot, like you said, he's got 2 receptions for 11 yards. Like, that's the outcome. So I don't know. I feel like we need to have an offensive coordinator that is watching practice every week, realizing that these go routes or these 50-50 go balls or these back shoulder fades, whatever you want to call them, up and outs, whatever they are, they're not working. And obviously Keon's getting frustrated. McDermott was asked in the press conference, like, is there a confidence issue with Keon and do you have to talk to him? And it's like, why are we blaming Keon for this entire inept wide receiver room that just can't do anything?
Yeah, and it's not just on Keon.
Right.
It's not just on Keon. And I feel bad for the kid because coming out of college, he wasn't a great route runner. Everybody and their mother knew that. Like, everybody knew that about him, that he was a physically athletic and gifted kind of jump ball wide receiver. Or if you scheme him open, he had the athleticism to run after the catch. Well, they're not scheming him open. Right. Like, every once in a blue moon they are, but it's not enough. So instead, you're relying on someone that struggles with separation, that is not a great route runner, just running go routes down the sideline, and Josh heaving it up. Not only that, dude, what the fuck are we doing calling that on 3rd and 10?
Yeah.
Like, you're throwing like the most low probability option that you have in the playbook on 3rd and 10. I don't get it. If you want to go play action deep shot to Keon on 1st down, sure, try that every once in a while. See if you can get one. But on 3rd and 10, do something that has a higher probability. Like what the creativity is just gone. So here's what I'm noticing about our conversation so far. Okay. We're going in circles because it's starting with like, well, you can't blame Keon because the roster looks like this, but the roster looks like this because it was Stephon Diggs like leaving or because it was Joe Brady's system. So the offense and the roster looks like this to fit Joe Brady's system, but Joe Brady's system is not good enough. So we're just going like this around the offense. And I don't know if there is just one thing wrong here. I don't think you can be like, the blame is Joe Brady. Although there's a lot of things that Joe Brady has done that I don't like. But the roster also isn't good enough in terms of the talent at the wide receiver position, which is Sean McDermott's fault. So, or not Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane, not Sean McDermott. Brandon Beane's fault. So, but then you have the decision making that comes into play too, which just really pisses me off. You know, all of the risk aversion decisions and clock management decisions from McDermott. Like that's a huge problem as well. Like what was it? I wrote it down. I had a note here. It was right before halftime. Let's see. What did I write down?
I just feel like
it was the clock management. I'm trying to figure it out here.
Yeah, I just feel like Sean McDermott has regressed as the head coach.
Is
agree. That bad to say that? Because I was highly critical 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and then last year. Well, I would say the last 2 years, he's gotten a lot more of the in-game management stuff has gotten better as far as like the challenges and the timeouts and going for it on 4th down and stuff like that. I feel like he's regressed back to playing to not lose.
Yeah. I agree.
Instead of playing to win the game, you should play every game to win instead of, I don't want to say he's playing it safe, but like I got shit on social media because that first drive when they were at the 35, I would have went for it. Set the tone right now. Like we're aggressive today. We're going to go for it. And if they don't get it, so what? Then you put your defense out there, you hold them to a field goal at worst case or least case scenario. So
so before halftime, it was a screen pass that went nowhere. Dalton Kincaid dropped a 20-plus yard pass in the rain. And then 3rd and 6, you call a draw to Ty Johnson with 2 timeouts in your pocket. You're just saying we're just going into halftime. You're down by like 10 points at the time or whatever it was. Or more. No, they hadn't even scored yet. So it was 16-0, I think, at that point in the game. 16-0. You've got 2 timeouts, and you just elect on 3rd down to run a draw, go into halftime. Like
it was like submitting. It was like they were just gonna submit. Like it's like a wrestling reference, like just submitting.
And like talk about telling the team that you don't have confidence in them too. Like you're just taking all the air out of the balloon, all the fire out of the players in moments like that, where you're not even giving them an opportunity to make a play. And so you have that decision making and the 4th downs, and then you run some stupid fake quarterback sneak bootleg thing to James Cook on 4th and 1, where Cook is blanketed by 2 different guys. Josh has no other option except for Jackson Hawes 30 yards down the field. Like what kind of play call is that? And then you run a jet sweeps all over the place with your 4th, 5th, 6th wide receiver. I just don't understand the combination of the roster, the decision-making, and the scheme. Like all of it collectively doesn't make any sense to me right now. And because of it, we are seeing a rattled Josh Allen that we have not seen in 2 years. And we are seeing someone that doesn't trust what he sees in front of him. He's not trusting his own eyes.
We're seeing 2023 Ken Dorsey, Josh Allen.
Yeah,
where he 100%. He just looked defeated every game. Like he's pouting at the microphone. He looks like he's about to cry. He looks like, he just ran a triathlon. His face is all beet red and he looks sad, doesn't have a hat on. And that's what we saw in 2023. And that's what this is reverted back to. And yes, they're 6-3. And at that time they were 6-5 when they fired Ken Dorsey, or were they 6-6?
All right. So why don't we do this? Why don't we look ahead at the schedule coming up and play a game? When does Joe Brady get fired? So this next week you have Tampa Bay. After that, you have.
I would not be shocked if there's a Kansas City vibe to the Bills game at home against Tampa, how they play, how they perform. And then everybody's going to be like, okay, they talked it out. They figured some stuff out. And then who knows what's going to happen after that.
Okay, so then after that, you have the Houston Texans, who are allowing the second fewest rushing yards per game. How do you stop the Bills right now? You shut down the run. You get after the quarterback, and you blanket on the outside. I don't like the matchup with Houston. I don't like it. And I don't even care who Houston's quarterback is in that game. Yeah. Their defense scares the shit out of me right now. Then after that, you have the Steelers, who, say what you want about them, and they've got their ups and their downs this year. They're a tough out, and it's going to be in Pittsburgh. They have an above-average rush defense as well, especially lately, it seems like. Then after that, you're looking at Joe Burrow potentially coming back week 14.
Yeah, but I don't think that the Bengals are going to win another game before that happens. And they'd be like, what, 3-9? And they're probably like 10th or 11th in the AFC. So I don't.
So that one depends on Joe. That one depends on if he's back.
Yeah.
But I don't like our corners against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
No, God, I don't. Joe Flacco could eat the Bills up.
Yeah, sure. Like, he absolutely could.
He threw for 470 yards a couple weeks ago. I mean, it's not like,
Then you've got the rematch. Then you got the rematch with New England, who is allowing the fewest rushing yards in the NFL this season, 11 yards less than Houston is. Yeah. They are running away on run defense on the road in New England. Yep. Then you have Cleveland and their defensive front. And then you have Philly. Like, these aren't easy games.
Nope.
Buffalo could go 500 the rest of the season. They could go below 500, and it wouldn't surprise me. And they might miss the playoffs. Like, I'm not trying to be all doom and gloom, because coming into this season, we were like, this is a team that's poised for an AFC first seed type season. And in the first 4 weeks, it looked like that. Lately, the wheels have come off, and it's not because there's been catastrophic injuries or anything like that. Like, there's a couple, but it's not like there's catastrophic injuries. The talent and the scheme, the players in the scheme are not jiving right now. It doesn't make any sense.
Do you let me ask you this. Do you think that Brandon Beane, and this is going to sound like a weird question, but do you think Brandon Beane's gotten kind of complacent in thinking that, well, last year Josh had very similar skill position players. Dalton Kincaid's going to progress. Keon can't be worse. We still have Shakir. I got Joshua Palmer, who kind of replaced Mac Hollins. James Cook, if he's somewhat close to what he was last year, just take away the touchdown numbers, we're going to be fine. The offensive line, all five guys are back. We brought back Ty Johnson. Like, we're good, right? Like, this team's going to score 30 points a game, right? They're going to be able to just use this Joe Brady system of not turning the ball over, controlling the clock, and whatnot. And everybody and their brother was like, hold on a minute. What the Bills did offensively last year is going to be extremely difficult to duplicate. The turnovers are going to be extremely difficult to duplicate.
The turnovers are a huge thing. The turnover battle was a massive element to last season.
And Josh Allen not getting sacked was a huge deal last year. He's gotten sacked already more than he did last year. The offensive line's not playing the way they did. The skill position players are not, minus Khalil Shakir, is not, and Kincaid, I guess, is not playing up to the standard that they were playing at last year. And we all dogged Mac Hollins. We dogged Mac Hollins for a long time until it got to be like week 13. We're like, this guy's a fucking playmaker. Like, when Josh needs a play, he goes to Mac Hollins. On top of what he brings with the vibes and play special teams. So then we swapped that out for Tyrell Shavers, essentially, right? A guy who plays special teams, can't do the other stuff that Mac does. So I feel like Beane said, all right, offensively, they're going to bitch and moan that I didn't go get a wide receiver. I didn't draft one. I'll sign Elijah Moore. I don't know why Cleveland didn't want him, but we'll sign him anyways. He's fast. Joe Brady will use him. He's another Curtis Samuel type. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go crazy on defense. I'm going to draft. I'm going to sign guys. I don't care.
How's that worked out, by the way?
Yeah, I don't care.
The defense is second worst in the NFL in rushing yards allowed. Second worst in the NFL.
It's like, and I understand, look, Ed Oliver's injured. TJ Sanders got injured. Now Michael Hoyt's injured. That was part of your whole run defense was going to be better this year because you brought in these guys. Ogunjobi missed 6 games. He seems to be okay. I'm not overly over the moon about what he's been able to do. But it's like, Maxwell Hairston and Cole Bishop have played out of their minds the last couple weeks. Yes,
Yep.
Hairston gave up the big pass to Waddle that was a touchdown, but other than that, those guys have started to play better. That's okay. I'll go sign Jordan Poyer. I'll go sign Jordan Phillips. We'll bring back, Balin Spector to the practice squad. We'll get Gabe Davis. That sounds good.
All right, get to the punchline.
I feel like he got complacent with what was going on last year, and it was like he's trying to just. I have Josh Allen, and I don't need to do anything else, and we have no money. So what are we going to do next year? What was his plan? You know what I mean? Like, we gave all these extensions to guys. The only ones that deserved it right now are Cook and Shakir. The other ones, what are we doing? So I don't know. I mean, we talked about Beane to start the show, and I just feel like a lot of this has to be on Beane. The roster construction has to be under scrutiny. Now, if we want to talk about McDermott, we can talk about McDermott, because I don't know what was being called defensively on Sunday. People want to throw injuries out there. That's fine. But do you think that McDermott was relying heavily on Babbage to call the game on Sunday? Did it look different to you?
Yeah. Before we run to that, and I'm going to get to that, I want to go back to what you were saying about the roster construction with Beane first, because he's playing it like he wants to just draft and develop. But at some point, you have to flip the switch into contention mode. Like, you can't just draft and develop, draft and develop, draft and develop. Or if that's the route that you're going to go, and I'm saying the draft is important. You need to hit in the draft to be successful in the NFL. You do. But if you're going to go the route where your entire philosophy to building is, I'm going to sign like cheaper veterans, and I'm going to draft and develop guys that are going to be the core of the team, then the guys that you draft have to hit. Like, you have to have 100%. Big time hits in the draft, which they haven't had. James Cook was a huge hit. You drafted him. He far exceeded expectations, became one of the best running backs in the NFL. But over the last 4 years, we talked about this a couple months ago, who has he selected that has become like a top at their position type talent in the NFL? There really aren't any on this roster right now. If this team didn't have Josh Allen, they're drafting like 3rd overall next year. Like, the roster is not a great roster. It's just not. And it's because he's been missing in the draft, or he's been drafting guys that are okay, like drafting guys that are contributors, and that's fine. But he hasn't hit it out of the park with any pick. He hasn't found somebody to come in and become a stud. Like, God, I keep going back to it, and I hate playing the what if game. But it's what I wanted at the time, and I hate that he didn't do it. 𝐿add with the next pick to the Chargers. Yeah. Like, you could have drafted a guy that has speed and separation ability and great hands at all 3 levels of the field, but instead you drafted a 6'4" straight line athlete who isn't even much of a straight line athlete. It's not like he's a burner to be an outside type guy. So the roster construction deserves a ton of scrutiny on Brandon Beane. It is something that I just don't see. I don't see it being something that's successful. And at this point, it's like, what is he going to do? Like you said, we don't have a lot of money. So it's not like he can go trade 2 first-round picks for a guy that, eats up $20 million a year. We don't have that. So I don't know what the path forward is. Okay. To the defense, the defense looked completely different to me. I didn't see similar play calling, but more importantly, on like the defensive scheme and the play calling from McDermott, dude, we got to have a conversation about the linebackers, because Bernard and Milano, they are both not looking the part.
Man. I don't know what else we can say about Matt Milano. I feel like this is just his last run in Buffalo. This is his last season. Yeah. It needs to be. Hopefully, we can get Shaq Thompson back. And I would have never thought I would have said that in the offseason, and put Dorian Williams and Shaq Thompson on the field. What do you have to lose at this point? Terrell Bernard does not look like the same linebacker he did 2 years ago. And that's funny, because that's when McDermott was calling plays. And I feel like that was when he was at his best, was when McDermott was in his helmet telling him what to do. So that's why I asked, like, McDermott said that he and Babbage were, side by side, and we're doing this together. But you can tell when there was a heavy McDermott presence in the defense. The last 2 games, minus the Dolphins game, the 2 games previous, you could tell that McDermott was heavily involved coming out of the bye against the Panthers and then against the Chiefs. I just don't see what is going on with Terrell Bernard. His regression needs to be studied. He takes bad angles at run plays. He's a liability in coverage. He missed tackles. I'd have to look up his missed tackle percent, but he's got to be up there pretty high in missed tackle percent. And then Matt Milano he's Matt Milano. He's not the same guy that he was 3 years ago. I think the injuries have finally caught up to him. I think age has finally caught up to him. And I just think that he can't play near the level that he was playing at. What's your thoughts on Milano and Bernard?
It's exactly what you just said. I think Milano is just not going to get back to the Milano that everyone knows and loves. Injuries, age, I think it's just caught up to him. Bernard's regression is just hard to watch.
Yeah.
He and Milano multiple times in that game were just getting washed out. Just washed out of a play against Miami. Like, it's not like it's an elite offensive front like Baltimore. It's not like you're playing against the Ravens or, some of the other like better fronts, better running teams in the NFL. I know 𝐬𝐻𝐿 is fast as hell. Like, I get that. And I know that he's a tough task, but they weren't even getting off their blocks. Right. Like, they were just getting completely washed. I mean, all the way out of frame. And then 𝐬𝐻𝐿, as soon as he gets through the gap, there's just no one there. They did a pretty good job as a team. They did a pretty decent job containing 𝐬𝐻𝐿 throughout the game until late.
Yeah.
So maybe it was just a little bit of like, they just were giving up. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. There was no energy with this team in the fourth quarter. You're counting on Josh to be a miracle worker, and he had a couple miraculous plays. It's kind of like when you throw the 50-50 ball to Keon Coleman. Every once in a while, it's going to connect, but it doesn't mean that it's the right way for you to run your offense. Like, it's the same thing with Josh holding the ball and scrambling every play. Sometimes he's going to do something ridiculous, and it's going to be a highlight, but a lot of the times it's not. And looking at the defense, man, there was very little fight from the linebackers. In particular, Joey Bosa looks great. He's looking awesome. I thought Greg Rousseau had some, improving plays. Deon Walker is continuing to ascend as a defensive tackle. The next line behind that, you got nothing from him the entire game. And then behind that, you have Max and Bishop showing a lot of promise and not a lot else right now either. So it's concerning, man. The linebacker play in particular was just really, really hard.
Yeah, and to not really harp on the Brandon Beane aspect, but I just literally thought about this, is that Christian Benford, I feel like a lot of people are saying, well, he's not allowing separations of receivers. He's already allowed 4 touchdowns. He allowed 4 touchdowns last year. If you look at his quarterback rating, it's 30 points higher than it was last year when he's targeted. They just gave him $96 million. Terrell Bernard, they just gave a boatload of money to. Greg Rousseau, they just gave a boatload of money to. And that's where this is linked back into Brandon Beane. If you want to talk about coaching, fine. Like, maybe McDermott's not putting these guys in position to be successful, whatever. But when you're handing out these contracts, 5 extensions this offseason, you have to hit on probably all of them, because for the next 4 years, you're tied to these guys. Because if there's an out at the end, that's fine. But what does the dead cap look like in 2 years? So say Terrell Bernard has a season like this again next year. Like, what are we doing? Right? Are we just going to pay him just to play just because we paid him? You know what I mean? Then we start getting into like salary cap management issues that, we've been talking about since last year. Like, I understand we have to pay Josh Allen, and I understand we got to pay Spencer Brown and Deion Dawkins, and we paid James Cook and things like that. But like, where's the money was allocated in a certain way to where now this coming off season, even if say the salary cap goes up 28, 30 million, you don't have a lot to play with. And you're going to have guys that are coming off of the 1-year contracts that you're going to have to go find replacements for, and you're not going to have a bunch of money to play with. So,
I'll tell you right now, I just looked up Terrell Bernard's contract because I was curious. He's getting cut after 2026. Like, straight up. He'll be a $3.6 million dead cap. Like, if he's playing like this next year.
If he's playing like this.
Yeah, they're not bringing him back, because he would count 11 million against the cap. His cap hit this year is only 2.5. Next year, it's 5.4. The year after that, it's 11.1. After that, it's 12. After that, it's 13.1. So like he's got next year to prove that he's staying on the roster. Otherwise, he's getting cut. Like, period.
Yeah, it's crazy. So let's talk about Josh, because I feel like this is a sensitive subject for a lot of people because of how much we all like love the guy, love the player, love what he's meant to the city, the organization. He's an all-world, once in a lifetime. He's going to set all the NFL records as far as for quarterbacks and rushing and all that stuff. He's going to end up with 400 passing touchdowns and 100 rushing touchdowns, and that's never been done. So we all love Josh.
That's crazy to think about.
We all love Josh Allen, but I feel like we shy away from criticizing him because he's the golden goose, right? He is a golden retriever or whatever, however you want to phrase it. I feel like he's not left blameless here at all. I feel like we talked about it probably about a month ago where he was bailing pockets early. He wasn't trusting what he was seeing. He didn't look as athletic when avoiding the rush. It looked like he was making bad decisions and forcing passes. And we said it looks a lot like 18-19 Josh. Like he's not sugar high Josh, but it just looks like very indecisive, very like haphazardly playing when he doesn't do that. And then he'll go and do things like what he did against Kansas City. He'll throw for 88% completion percentage and look just like he's dialed in and smiling on the sideline and all that stuff. But then you get Sunday Josh. Yes, he threw for 300 yards, and most of it was, I would say, I don't want to call it garbage time, but it was when the Bills weren't in the game. So he was just kind of trying to do whatever he could. What is your thoughts on Josh this year and where he's at? If you look at him statistically, it doesn't look bad, but with the eye test, when you watch what he's doing, missing open guys, bailing on clean pockets, like what's your thought process here on Josh? And we can kind of go back and forth a little bit.
My thought is that he is not trusting the system right now. Like that's my first thought, is that he's trying to do too much because I'm not sure that he trusts what's going to happen after that. Like there's multiple times in this game where he passed up an easy throw, like an easy button completion to 𝐤𝐿 to pick up 4 or 5 yards. Instead, he's holding the ball and he's looking downfield and trying to find a big chunk play. I feel like this is what we saw with him when it was Ken Dorsey here too. It was Josh feeling like he has to do everything instead of letting it come to him. And over the last year and into the first few weeks this season, he did let it come to him. Everything was clicking and it was in rhythm and it was smooth and ball was out on time. And sure, there were times where it would break down and he would take off and do Josh Allen things. But remember how the whole conversation last year was like, oh, this isn't like scramble around Josh or big play Josh. This is Josh being like, more pragmatic and distributor and following. Yeah. Game manager Josh, which game manager gets a really bad moniker, but you want a quarterback to be a game manager. You want them to operate well within the system and then be able to do things outside of it when it calls for it. But it looks to me like he just doesn't have the juice, the belief in what this offense is going to do from like one play to another. Maybe it's the play calling, maybe it's the actual players. I'm not sure, but it looks like he's trying to take it back onto himself like he did in the past. So I don't know. I think it's a wide receiver thing. I mean, I really think that he's looking down the field and he's not trusting that they're going to be in the right spot at the right time or that they're going to be able to make a contested situation. But somehow he's got to be getting a directive, force it to 𝐾𝐿. Like that has to be something where it's like, this is a 𝐾𝐿 Coleman route. Like it's a predetermined, when we call this, you're throwing the sideline, fade or shoulder throw or whatever. So it looks like it's all forced right now. It's just not coming to him easy. And instead of just taking your simple checkdowns, he's holding the ball or scrambling around because no one's open. He held the ball for like over 10 seconds on a play on Sunday.
The one that he dumped it off to 𝐤𝐿, I think it was, what was it? Like he ran to the one side, he swooped all the way back around. And if you watch the other receivers on that play, there's guys that are open. And then he finally was like, all right, 𝐤𝐿, here you go. I don't want to run anymore. I'm tired. Here. So you mentioned that he's getting directives to force things. Do you honestly think that there is, because I remember against the Chiefs, and it was a big play, that big pass he threw to 𝐾𝐨 that was like 46 yards or something. If you look underneath, there's two guys open underneath. And Josh held the ball a little bit longer so that 𝐾𝐨 can get to that break in that route. Do you think that there's a directive like, hey, we spent capital on these guys, you need to get them the ball? Or do you think that doesn't happen? Do you think that that's just, that's kind of conspiracy theory-ish? Because I think at this point in Josh Allen's career, he should, and we kind of touched on this before we came live, is that Josh should have a certain amount of say in how things are being run. Not as far as like the draft and selecting guys and saying, Beane, I want Coleman and things like that, because there's a whole huge deal about that. But like, as far as like how the offense should be run and if he's comfortable running the offense, because would you rather have Josh Allen that's just the golden retriever Josh? Yes, sir, I'll do whatever. I love this team, whatever. Or would you rather have a little bit of a fiery Josh? Because we get on all these older quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers, who would always be pissed off with the head coach because he didn't like how the offense was being run. Or, there's other guys too that we can throw out there that just weren't happy with how the offense was being run because it didn't suit their capabilities. It doesn't suit Josh. You can tell he wants to throw the ball deep. There's times when he wants, like you said, he's waiting for someone to make a break. And those guys aren't doing it. Now, is that Josh's fault? Maybe he should take the stuff underneath. Sure. But I feel like he's always going to be a gunslinger. I feel like he's always going to be that guy that wants to take a little bit of risk, and he wants to just see how the play unfolds. We all know that he's a visual. He's not an anticipatory thrower. He's a visual guy. He wants to do things off script, and he wants to be able to, like, I don't want to say backyard football, but he wants to be able to, if a play breaks down, he wants to have the trust in his guys to go make a play. And I feel like that you alluded to that, like maybe he just doesn't have the trust. I remember back in 2023 when Dorsey was still the OC, they were asking Josh about the play calling, and it was, I think the Bills were 6, I don't know if they were 5-4 or something around there. And Josh said, I'm just running the plays that are being called. So are we having deja vu all over again, where he's just running the plays that are being called and he doesn't trust the plays that are being called? He doesn't feel like that's putting the team in the best spot to be successful week in and week out. Because last year it was the same guy calling the plays, essentially with just about the same skill position players. Swap out Mac Hollins for Palmer. Like, what's your thoughts on that? Do you think it's Josh doesn't trust the play calling? Do you think that he doesn't trust himself? Like, what? There's got to be more to this, right, with Josh, than he just regressed. I hate that he regressed in year 9 or 8. Like, I don't feel like that happened.
No, I think the talent's still there. Like, the athleticism is still there. Yeah. I don't think that that's it, because we've seen him put on Superman cape, when he needs to. I think going back to like your golden retriever comment, I think that's a little bit of it for me. It's fine to like be the yes man and go along with it and like trust the system and operate within it to a degree. But when you're Josh Allen with that kind of talent, like, I think we're at the point, like, I think it's like now where I want to see fiery Josh. Like, now is the point where it's like, no, dude, like, I want to see the fire. I want you to be pissed off if you don't like the play call. Like, hold the offensive coordinator accountable for play calls. On the situation, like I was talking about earlier, before halftime, 2 timeouts in his pocket, and you're saying we're going to run a draw and then walk to halftime, Josh Allen should have been fucking screaming.
Yeah.
Like, he should have been storming off the field. Like, give me a chance. Like, I want to see some of that out of Josh Allen. You're one of the best players in the league. Like,
it's just funny that we criticized all these other quarterbacks because we called them divas and all this because they would be mad. I'm not talking about Josh Allen, but other quarterbacks in the past. And Aaron Rodgers is the only one I can think of off the top of my head about they didn't like what was being called and they were boisterous about it. We called them assholes. Like, he forced his way out of Green Bay. Well, no, he didn't like how the offense was being run because he didn't feel like he was being a part of something that was being productive. So again, like, and that's the thing that kind of irritates me. I don't know if Josh has that. I don't know, because whenever there's been a loss, typically it's in the playoffs when they lose. They interview Josh and he looks like disheveled. Fine, you're a competitor, you lost. I would probably be pissed off too, but there's such a like huge contrast between fired up Josh, smiling, joking around with the media, and then just sitting there doesn't want to talk. Like he's like sulking. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, dude, you're 6-3. You got almost half the season left. You can still figure this shit out, and you can still go out there and win a bunch of games. But that's why I think there's something else going on. And I'm not saying with Josh and personally and things like that, because
I think it's scheme, man. It's scheme and talent. Like it's an offense that doesn't have enough weapons. That has been a failure of the front office. Brandon Beane does not have this team with the weapons that it deserves to have. And then the scheme is dink and dunk and too cute and running, screen here, screen there, bubble there, jet sweep to Elijah Moore, whatever it was. It's just like, God, dial some stuff up. 𝐾𝐿, Shakir, James Cook, feed them, give them opportunities at all levels of the field, not just all shallow. Or it's just short, 20-yard sideline throw to Keon Coleman. That's not a winning recipe. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's time for Josh to start getting vocal and start getting a little bit pissed off and hold the team like to the fire a little bit. It's like, you want me to stay here forever? You want me to be the forever guy that's on the long-term contract that continues to restructure to help the cap, all of that stuff? You got to surround me with talent, because Josh, like, I don't know. He is such a golden achiever that I could just see him being the company guy and he stays in Buffalo forever, no matter what. Like, I could see that being the case. But I also wouldn't hold it against him if this team continues to fail to surround him with the pieces needed to win a Super Bowl, if he eventually decides to force his way out. Not saying right now, not saying next year, but 4 years from now, we're still like, you're 34 years old. You haven't, it's Aaron Rodgers. You haven't won a Super Bowl. Aaron at least had one.
That's
what I'm saying.
But for how many years did the Packers neglect the offensive side of the ball in skill position players for Aaron Rodgers?
It's sounding a little familiar, isn't it?
They didn't draft wide receivers. Isn't Golden the first wide receiver they've ever drafted in the first round?
Yes.
That's insane when you have Aaron freaking Rodgers.
At least in a long time.
So, I mean, well, again, we could go round and round in this, but like you said earlier, I don't think there's one specific problem here. We started at the top. We kind of went through. I don't like the fact that Brian Daboll got fired and Sean McDermott was immediately quick to squash that news that he would even consider calling Brian Daboll. I don't know. Maybe that was just spur of the moment because it literally had happened like within a couple hours of his press conference yesterday. Here's my thing on that, and I'm probably going to upset some folks here. Brian Daboll is not a yes man.
Nope.
Brian Daboll is not a yes man. We all know about the friction that happened with Brian Daboll and Sean McDermott. Sean McDermott wanted to run the ball. Brian Daboll wanted to be a high-scoring, potent downfield, over-the-top offense, which was when we saw Josh go nuclear in 2020. And I feel like Joe Brady, I feel like Bobby Babich, they are guys that Sean McDermott knows that they're going to do everything I ask them to do. And Brian Daboll, I feel like, would not be that guy. Even if you brought him in right now or next week or whatever, just to be an offensive assistant or a passing game coordinator or whatever that is. And then I see a lot of people talking about, well, you're going to, that's going to deteriorate the relationship with Joe Brady. At this point, does it matter? At this point, it should be all about making your $300 million quarterback happy and how he's going to function on Sunday leading your offense.
Yeah.
Because I'm sick of hearing McDermott for 2 of the last, 4 weeks now. We have to be able to be two-dimensional and pass the football. Sean McDermott used to never say that. When Brian Daboll was here, he would complain about being two-dimensional and having to run the ball, but the Bills were winning a bunch of games. And this wasn't an issue last year because the Bills scored 30 touchdowns on passing, 30 touchdowns rushing, so it wasn't an issue. Now it's becoming apparent that the Bills have issues passing the ball, whether it's scheme, whether it's the receivers, whether it's Josh Allen's not being Josh Allen, whatever it is. I don't know why McDermott at this point, he's got to hear the criticism. Why at this point, after knowing that your general manager just tried to trade for a division rival wide receiver you wouldn't try to do anything you could to help your offense. Just at least get another set of eyes in the room, another voice in your quarterback's ear, and
I couldn't care less about if it upsets Brady. I don't care.
And
I do not care.
Put a guy in there that's going to tell Josh, stop messing up, get your head on straight, and start playing some goddamn football the way that you're capable of playing football. Stop overthinking everything. Stop being frantic in the pocket and play like you did.
This is what matters. Will Pegula actually make big changes? No. Now, is there ever a point? Like, does it get to the point? If they miss the playoffs this year, is it going to happen? Are we going to finally see Pegula do it? But you look at the Sabres and you look at everything that's happened there, and like, I'm not a Sabres expert, but just from what I know, it's been a dumpster fire for a long time, and he's been reluctant to do anything. Yeah,
for 14 years.
For the Bills, you have Josh Allen. It's a perennial interesting team. Your tickets are sold out. Your merch is great. Like, everything's going well. Maybe that's all that he cares about. If he actually cares about sorry, I clicked at the same time that you.
No, you're good.
But is he actually going to do it? That's what I don't know. He loves Sean McDermott. So I don't know if he's going to be willing to just like clean house.
So hear me out on this. And
by the way, he just extended both Beane and McDermott this 100%.
To me, the only thing that's going to make a difference as far as management in the Bills organization, as far as Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, is if Josh Allen actually says something. I feel like that is the only way. And
I agree.
Beane and McDermott both know that is not Josh Allen's style. At least not yet. It's not. I don't think that it will be. But unless Josh Allen says to Terry Pegula, which is highly unlikely, hey, I don't know if we can get it done this way. I don't know if I can go every year trying to figure out an offensive scheme and have players that just aren't good enough. Because I put out a tweet the other day and I said, how many playmakers do the Bills have on defense? I skipped offense completely and I said, on defense, how many playmakers do the Bills have? And I got a couple Joey Bosa's, and now Maxwell Hairston is one. And that was about it.
Yeah.
And Maxwell Hairston's a rookie, and Joey Bosa's probably not going to be here next year. And then if you look at the offensive side of it, like Josh made it work last year. He became an MVP because of it. That MVP vote last year was because of what he did with what he had. And people don't realize that when they look at the stats and they're like, this isn't impressive. Lamar was better, and this person was better, and Jared Goff was better. Josh Allen took this team to an AFC Championship game with that offensive roster. So I don't know. Again, I think the only way something changes is if Josh Allen actually says something. And I don't think he publicly will do that. He's just not that guy. He's too much of the nice guy. Everything's great. Ho-hum if we lose. Let's move on to next week. So, I don't know. A couple signings or one signing the Bills did. They did sign Mecole Hardman. So
cool.
I don't know what that does. I mean, Beane, I guess, was trying to do something with what he could for the street. There was no good street free agents. There just wasn't.
No, there isn't any.
I mean, I'm not going to be shocked if we see Gabe Davis on Sunday.
No,
I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see Gabe Davis on Sunday. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Mecole Hardman in a couple weeks returning punts and he's running routes.
Here's the thing, though. My villain origin story this year is going to be if Keon Coleman continues to be top 2 on this team in targets week in and week out.
Yep.
If that happens for the rest of the season and Joe Brady just refuses to not, and again, is that coming from Beane? Like, do we have some sort of directive where it's like, we need to force the ball to Coleman and see if it's going to work out, or like try to make it so that he works out? Like, is there some, I'm conspiracy theorizing here, but is there some sort of directive saying you have to use Keon Coleman? Like, I don't understand what he's doing on the field. I would rather see Tyrell Shavers. I would rather probably give Gabe Davis a look, because Gabe Davis, I think, can separate better than Keon Coleman can at this point in his career. Like, I just don't understand why like I said earlier in the show, we came out of the bye and I thought we were done with this.
Right.
So I don't know why we're back to him having 9 targets in outside of 1 35-yard touchdown doing nothing.
The 2 games after the bye was the recipe.
Yeah.
If you play a team that can't stop the run, just keep feeding James Cook. If you play a team like the Chiefs that are going to do all kinds of crazy stuff, you have to have high percentage plays and you need to be able to run the ball well. Now, guess what? We're living in a world where we have Josh Allen, the reigning NFL MVP, and we're living in a world where if you stop James Cook, you can beat the Bills. It makes absolutely no sense to me. And we've had a year and a half to figure out how to use Keon Coleman, and they haven't. It's the same offensive coordinator. It's the same Keon Coleman with the same traits and the same lack of ability in certain areas. Why are we still trying to do the same thing? The definition of insanity is beating your head against the wall over and over and over and expecting a different result. And that's what I feel like I do every time I watch them throw those 50-50 balls to Keon Coleman. Well,
the law on the wall,
he'll catch one of them eventually.
Which he did. Great, cool. But you're wasting 8 other targets. Like, that's the thing. It's like, yeah, he might eventually get the 1 35-yard touchdown, which is great when it happens. But, like, Mac Hollins had a higher percentage of reeling in those targets for 35-yard touchdowns than Keon Coleman does. And listen, I love everything that I've heard about Keon Coleman, the person. I am rooting for his success. I would love for him to turn this around. It would be the best thing for the Bills offense if he did. But at this point, you can't look at what he's doing on the field and say that that is above replacement level. It's just not.
I just don't understand why we're using Curtis Samuel and Elijah Moore as running backs. Like the play against the Chiefs, that 28-yard like dot that Josh threw down the field, he was covered and he made a contested catch. It was a good catch, good throw.
Yep.
The whole play was nice. And then nothing ever again. Like, that's it. We saw that one pass to Elijah Moore down the field. Like, you have guys that run 4.3 sub 4.4 speed, and you don't throw the ball down the field to them. You're not asking them to run those routes. You're asking your slowest 2 receivers in Tyrell Shavers and Keon Coleman to run those routes. Why are you doing that? I don't. That to me is just roster or game plan malpractice. And that's 100% on Joe Brady. And you got to think that and this is where I get mad at McDermott, because if you're watching this film with your offensive coordinator, your quarterback's coach, whoever else is in the room, and you don't look at that and you say, why are these guys running these routes? We were told for 4 years now that we need speed. We got speed. We paid a whole bunch of money for Curtis Samuel. He was active. Run him down the damn field. I've seen it in Washington and Carolina. Oh, yeah, by the way, you coached him in Carolina where he had his best season statistically. Why aren't you using him? I don't understand. And then Elijah Moore, like, same thing. A jet sweep and then 1 target for 6 yards. Run him down the damn field.
But that's what I'm saying.
That's
what I'm saying. Instead, you're forcing 8 targets to Keon Coleman.
Exactly.
Like,
because you have to justify that he was the 33rd pick overall. That's why.
Exactly. And that's my point. That is exactly my point.
And if
it were your decision, would you clean house? Beane, McDermott, Brady, all gone.
Yes.
Okay, I would too.
Yes.
Because this recipe isn't working.
There's going to be people that want to come after me all they want, but I've defended both of these guys for a very long time. I defended McDermott like tooth and nail after 13 seconds. I defended Brandon Beane after the whole Von Miller thing and when he got injured and all the dead money, and then when he traded Stephon Diggs, all this. I've defended Beane in his drafting malpractice. I've defended Beane in his roster construction for long enough. I'm done. Like, we have a quarterback who's going to turn 30 in May.
Yep.
And he's probably going to start hitting a part of his career where he can't run all over the place and play Superman in the fourth quarter. He just can't. And to not give him a drafted wide receiver, to not give him skill position players that are young, that are ascending, is just like Curtis Samuel was on 2 other teams. Elijah Moore was an outcast from 2 other teams. Like, yes, 𝐾𝐨𝐿 Shakir they drafted. And
Elijah Moore was an outcast from the Jets.
Right.
The Jets. They couldn't use him.
I had high hopes for Elijah Moore. I'm like, dude's played with trash quarterbacks in Cleveland and New York. Josh Allen's going to be able to get him the ball downfield. Guess what? They don't throw the ball downfield, so it really doesn't matter. But yeah, look, you might hate this. I'd call Brian Daboll to be a head coach.
I'd call
Brian Daboll to be a head coach.
Give me Kubiak.
Yeah,
Seattle's offensive coordinator.
Find a really good
he's doing
coordinator that can figure out how to use all these guys that you're now locked to for years. All these draft picks and these. I'm just saying, like
Kubiak's offense, and then I saw Greg from over at Cover One list the Eagles' assistant general manager as a candidate for the GM job. Great, perfect. Marry those two up. An offense that knows how to use Josh Allen's arm. Who's the best deep ball thrower in the NFL right now? Statistically, it's Sam Darnold. It's Kubiak's quarterback.
You know what really pisses me off too is if you watch the pocket that Sam Darnold has to throw the ball. I'm not downplaying our offensive line. This is not a dig at our offensive line because I feel like there's scheme involved with that as well. But watching Sam Darnold have just as much time as he wants for his guys that are fast enough to get downfield and beat coverage is insane.
Yep.
It's insane because we talked mad shit about Sam Darnold for so long when he was with the Jets, and then he went on his little, he traveled around for a little bit, and then last year with the Vikings he was really good.
Walkabout. And it was his walkabout. It was his coming of age process.
It's the problem is I see a lot of Bills fans they'll come after people that have these negative takes because we're 6-3. We could just win a couple games and we're fine. We're still in the playoffs and blah blah blah. Season's not over. And I love people that are always optimistic. That's fine. That's how you fan. I'm never going to tell you to change that way. But realistically, we've been talking about this, John, for 6 or 7 weeks about things don't look right. Things look off structure. The offense was scoring points, but it looked like it was difficult. It was hard to get first downs. It was hard to score touchdowns. And I feel like it was only a matter of time before this stuff all caught up with this team. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it was just a matter of time before the little hiccups that they had early on came back to bite them in the ass. And now we're seeing it.
New England did it in 1 year.
Yeah.
Literally 1 year. And you have Josh Allen on this roster to build around. Like, don't tell me that you shouldn't do it. I'm sorry. If the tone, if the message isn't right, if the roster construction isn't right, you got to do something about it. I'm not content. Like, listen, there are many, many NFL fan bases that would kill to be the Buffalo Bills and
100%.
what they've had over the last 5-6 years. Absolutely. But if you want to win a Super Bowl, this recipe for building the team, for coaching the team, for the scheme has not gotten you there. And if anything, it looks like it's going backwards and growing stale. At some point, you throw out the stale bread and you bake a new loaf. Like, you got to start the process over. And like you said, I have defended McDermott and Beane a lot. But I'm to the point now where I'm like, this is not going to get it done. I feel like the roster is getting worse over time. And the decisions that were made this last offseason, like you said earlier, you paid all these guys. It better be worth it. Right now, it doesn't look worth it at all. So,
yeah, and those guys that you paid are blocking from how you draft because are you going to spend a high draft pick on a defensive end if you have Greg Rousseau locked up and you have XYZ or say a linebacker that could replace Terrell Bernard?
Well, like I said, I'm drafting a linebacker early in this next year, in this next class, so that you have a contingency plan if Bernard, listen, you could draft a rookie linebacker. There's a couple really, really good ones this coming year in the first round, and that person might just flat out beat Bernard in camp for the starting role. Now, in McDermott, if it's still McDermott, would McDermott start a rookie linebacker week 1? Probably not, but then you build to 2026 and you have that linebacker take over. The thing is, this is a team that has Josh Allen in his prime, starting to teeter towards past it. Like, you're on the back nine. You got to go all in. Like, you have to do whatever you can to build the best roster possible. And this roster right now is not good enough on many, many, many different layers. The wide receivers aren't good enough. The defensive line isn't good enough. This is one of the worst rushing defenses in the league. The defensive line has looked promising the last few weeks. They've been generating more pressure and they've been doing some stuff. The linebackers behind them have done jack shit.
Yeah.
Your corners look bad. Max looks like he could be something. I'm excited about Max. I'm good to see what that turns into. Bishop looks like he's leveled up too. That's great. But you can use 5, 6 new players on defense, 4 on offense. Like I don't. It's disheartening.
Got to hold on to that 2026 first round draft pick though.
Just miss me with that all fucking day, dude.
Because
like I can't.
You know what?
If that was actually the difference, if it was legitimately the only difference,
that was reported by multiple outlets on the NFL Network, ESPN. It was reported by multiple guys that said that was the offer.
It would have been like the exact same thing as trading for prime Stephon Diggs. When you did it, you gave up a first to a guy that was second fiddle on his team that can take over as being a true one. And I think
let me ask you this then: what's the first round draft pick next year? What position?
Was the position?
No. What do you think the Bills should draft? Why in the 2026 draft? What position in the first round?
Depends on how it falls, but I would say wide receiver, linebacker, or corner.
So why draft one that you have to develop?
Yep.
In a not great wide receiver class when 27 is going to be a hell of a lot better, and get a guy that's proven. Now, say what you want about his injury history. I don't care. I watched what he did to the Bills on Sunday. And you don't think that there was some extra motivation there to do what he did on Sunday?
No, I just can't believe it. Like it just pisses me off so much. If you literally had that on the table and you said no, Brandon Beane, it's a fireable offense. I'm sorry. You've got to go. You've got to go. That's a move that has to get done if the other party is willing. Dolphins fans would have been pissed that was the only return that they got.
And there's ways that you can recoup that third round pick. There's ways that you can recoup. You have players on your roster that you might want to move on.
You can get it as a comp pick.
Yeah.
Like there's ways to make that happen. I don't care. Like you said, you have the ability to get a proven asset that knows the NFL. Also, that is exactly what your team needs.
Yeah.
A fast wide receiver that can separate at all levels of the field. Like he's exactly what this team needs.
A nice boost mid-season to see what they can do. And who knows what Brady would do with him. And there's that whole conversation too. But anyways, I think that's going to be about enough for this conversation. We try to just kind of have like a conversation about who's to blame. I think there's more people that you can throw in there. I don't think it's just one person to point the finger at. Again, we're going to have to see how the results come as the weeks come. If things look the same, this team might be in trouble. Again, the Bills have been here before where they look like they have just completely are deflated and things turn around. There was the time when Sean McDermott had that whole article about him and how he was with players a couple years ago. There was the lull that we had in midseason last year. So again, we'll see what happens. I'm going to try to be cautiously optimistic that maybe, things can change as far as the coaching structure and how Joe Brady calls games. Maybe guys can step up, maybe get some of these injured guys back, and maybe they can step up too. So other than that, that's all I got. We'll see you guys next week. I'll be back. Might be back tomorrow. I'm going to do a Q&A type of deal on X. We'll take some questions and kind of do like a mailbag type thing. John, anything else before we get out of here, man?
Not at all. Burn it to the ground.
All right. I'm Dave Myers. That's John Helmkamp. I'll see you next time on First and 5.